Somehow we're going to make this like a hour and a half long, even despite it being 8 pages. I always think, oh, it's a short chapter. We won't talk that long. And then somehow I find like 800 different things to say.
That's the way it goes sometimes.
I think it's because I'm more relaxed. I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. This is short. This little tangent doesn't matter. And then it all adds up.
I think people love that, though. At least some people do.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. They're regularly listening to like 2 hours of us talking, I think. They must like to hear us go on little tangents every once in a while.
Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And this week we're discussing chapter 29, Buckkeep Town. It is the last full chapter in this book. We're wrapping it up.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
I know, we just have one more episode that is an epilogue and then our whole book discussion.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think about. So if you guys have questions for us about the whole book, make sure you get them in at the end of this week as well, after you listen to this episode.
Yeah.
And then we can discuss those questions in our wrap-up episode. Well, we'll dive right in. The epigraph of this one is from Maribuck's Herbal.
Did we say this is chapter 29?
Yep.
Buckkeep Town?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I don't know how I missed that.
It was in my intro.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's usually where it is.
And this excerpt doesn't... I didn't find much of a secondary meaning to it, but it is talking about fennel.
Really? You didn't find secondary meaning at all?
I mean, besides fennel as the cat's name.
Okay, how about the very first part where it says, a good bed of fennel is an excellent addition to any cottage garden, though one must be wary of its spreading. That doesn't ring at all as like double entendre for, hey, the witted folk are good, but you got to be wary of their bad feelings spreading.
No, I did not read into that like that at all.
Oh. Yeah, I thought that's like, I don't know. I guess I just saw that as like, oh, that feels poignant considering we just had the whole book be about the problems of the witted folk and the animosity towards the witted folk and how, like, I don't know. There are good that come out of differences, but also when you let things go too far, even good things can become bad. I don't really know how it works, like how to phrase it right.
Yeah.
I guess.
Just like the be wary of it spreading is, paralleling some of the themes that you saw.
Yeah.
Interesting. The rest of it talks about the benefits of fennel and what you can do with it, medicinal values, and it ends with, given as a gift, the message of fennel is said by some to be strength, and by others, flattery. That's where it ends.
Yeah. But I would say, yeah, you're probably right that this is mostly just about Fennel the cat. Maybe why a hedge witch would name a cat Fennel.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I feel like your looking into it is completely valid and very fun because that's what we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is critically analyzing the text and finding meanings. But also in me is a little person going, hey, that's the curtains were blue because...
I will argue, though, that with the curtains are blue discourse, let me go on a real side step here. Sometimes the author might not mean to allude to depression via the blue curtains. However, it's one of those like...
add to an atmosphere, or subconsciously it was added in, or enhances the view of some readers. Yeah.
So I could argue this is one of those where maybe the author didn't mean for this to be read into the way I am. However, subconsciously. So I don't know. Maybe it's nothing, but it could be something.
Could be something. It enhanced your read at least.
Yes.
Well, we wake up with Fitz. And as Chade had warned him, he wakes up not in the early afternoon, but the late afternoon, early evening. So he has slept quite a long time after this tea. He is very groggy, kind of steps out, disheveled, and Lord Golden is impeccably attired at his writing desk.
I will also mention that Fitz says that when he awakes, because he's in complete darkness and also alone with himself for the first time in a long time, he fears he is dead when he wakes up because of that loss of Night Eyes, which I thought was a very poignant way to start of like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, am I dead right now? What's going on? It adds to the grogginess. But yes, he stumbles out and Lord Golden is impeccable as ever.
I have no idea what was in Chade's tea, but I don't think I want to try it again. And I have no idea what you're talking about, but I suspect that is just as well. He rose and came to the table, poured wine for us, and then glanced over me disparagingly. He shook his head. You are hopeless, Tom Badgerlock. Look at yourself. Sleeping in all day, and then appearing with your hair half on end in a worried old robe. A worse servant a man never had. He took the other chair. I could think of no reply to that. I sipped my wine gratefully. I considered the food, but I found I had no appetite. How was your evening? Did you enjoy a dance with Huntswoman Laurel? He raised one eyebrow at me as if my question puzzled and surprised him. Abruptly, he was my fool again, as a smile twisted his mouth. Ah, Fitz, you should know by now that every moment of my life is spent dancing, and with every partner I tread a different measure. Then, adroit as ever, he changed the subject, asking, And are you well this evening? I knew what he meant, as well as could be expected. I want to talk a little bit about that first exchange.
Yes.
So Fitz exits his room and immediately kind of is loose in the tongue. He's talking about Chade, he's being very familiar, and Lord Golden is reminding him like, hey, I don't know who Chade is, remember?
Yeah. And there's this weird sense of at no point does Fitz realize that, oh yeah, I should have been playing the part, or like think it's odd that his friend is pretending to be Lord Golden right now.
Yeah, I think the late night discussion, frank discussion with Chade, and then also the tea
Yeah.
and the loss, and like having it be the end of this journey that, you know, this is where we're playing the role, the part, kind of just lowered his guard, I guess. I don't know. He doesn't press anything about it. He doesn't really acknowledge anything in the text like you said, but he doesn't press anything and then continues on in a slightly more, you know, political tone and just asks about Huntswoman Laurel. Because again, remember, Fitz thinks that the fool is crushing on Huntswoman Laurel. Or they have been sleeping together in some way. And the fool is like, why are you asking about her?
Yeah, it's interesting to me that, I don't know, Beloved is playing the role of Lord Golden for so long. Like, I don't understand if maybe he just feels the need to continue to practice, like they've said before. But when Fitz is so clearly groggy and they are alone, it feels like an odd choice. Because it's not like once he realizes Fitz is groggy, he goes into his old self. It's when Fitz starts asking about a personal question, then he like switches the mask.
Which again is what we were talking about early on in this book, where he does that, right? He kind of reverts to that previous self that Fitz knew to kind of protect himself, maybe.
Or even just to humor Fitz. I think especially with Beloved saying, being who I am, I do many dances, and each partner gets a different measure, I think is very true to how he feels he's living his life.
Right.
Like, he's Lord Golden, but also he has to be the fool for Fitz because Fitz seems to not be able to reconcile both being the same person. Like, Fitz really has trouble seeing that maybe Lord Golden also is a real part of Beloved, right?
Right.
It's
Because beloved is not the person, it's the fool is the person
yes.
to Fitz.
And I don't know, it just feels very put on, I guess, especially in this chapter of like, okay, let's just reassure, like clearly Fitz needs me to be the fool, I'll be the fool. And it doesn't feel as like real Beloved as other times of being the fool has.
Yeah, and I feel like Beloved has also been stepping very carefully around Fitz since Night Eyes died. Like
Yes.
he's given him that space, obviously, but also this is the first real conversation we've had between the two of them when they've been alone.
Yeah.
And he's still in that role, maybe trying to create a persona and create distance for Fitz so he has a place to kind of like be normal-ish. Because maybe that's what the fool does and
Yeah.
how the fool copes, and that's how the fool understands how to, I don't know, just move on or keep going in the day to day. Maybe not move on. That's not the best term to put it, but I don't know. It's a really interesting choice to me, even though it happens only for a couple paragraphs.
Right. And it really feels like, and maybe it's just my reading of it, but it almost feels like there's two conversations happening in parallel here. Like Fitz is having one conversation with the fool, and Beloved is having a completely different conversation with Fitz.
Yeah.
And
I get more of that feeling near the end of this page as well.
yeah, so reading it with that in mind is also interesting because I really get the feeling that Fitz is a little out of it. And also, we know is not the best judge of what other people are thinking whenever he assumes things. And so, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like two people who don't fully understand where the other person is coming, but having a conversation that is reassuring each other that they are on the same page somehow.
The way that Robin Hobb writes this chapter in general is kind of odd. There's a very weird quality about it. Like, I know it's the last full chapter, but it's also like 8 pages long or something like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is lacking details. A lot of it is lacking kind of motivations that Fitz has in his head. It's a lot of just observant of what is happening. And it almost feels like that was kind of purposeful for how, I don't know, the lack of direction that Fitz is having.
Yeah.
Near the end of this chapter, we get a lot more of that description, a lot more of like the insight to what he's feeling and things like that. But this beginning part is just kind of, we'll breeze through this interaction and then move on.
Right. And it does make me wonder if this is done as like Fitz looking back and sort of trying to breeze through this interaction because it is a little bit more vulnerable, or if maybe this is just sort of setting us up for next book where we have
like a little bit of a disconnect between the two of them.
Where they're both disconnected, there's different things going on, and Fitz being blindsided by the idea that he and Lord Golden are lovers or whatever the rumor is.
I'm sure those rumors came about last night too.
Yeah, especially he's missing. Where'd he go?
Yeah.
Why is Lord Golden being so lenient towards the servant not doing his job?
Well, not that. Speaking of, but like Lord Golden himself and his actions at Galekeep.
Right. True. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So I feel like those are kind of all starting up now, and Fitz is not in it. And yeah, that could definitely be a reason why Lord Golden is just kind of not delving too deep in things. I don't know.
Right. Well, and also I'm sure Beloved wants to figure out what to do next and like how to handle the situation.
Right.
It seems like they are very stressed in this moment. Like I'm reading a lot of stress, especially later, because they bring up the fact that Lord Golden does not have a good reputation in this moment. And that has clearly been a stressor for them the entire book about this persona needs to have a good reputation, and a lot of moves were being made to ensure that Lord Golden stays this pristine character who is useful by being like an upstanding citizen, I guess.
Right.
And so I think a lot of things have changed for Lord Golden, and navigating that. I mean, he left Buckkeep and was the most popular noble. Everything was great. And now he's coming back and things have obviously changed, which is kind of crazy because why would you spread rumors about Lord Golden knowing that you tried to kidnap the prince? Like, I don't know. That just feels like such a mundane thing to be worried about whenever you are literally in the act of doing treason, like the Brazingas, who would have been there to know all this stuff happened.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's just, it's odd, but whatever.
Court must go on.
Court must go on.
But anyway, they continue this talk, and Lord Golden, or Fitz, brings up, like, I'm as well as it could be expected. And the fool, the persona of the fool, is still out here saying, okay, excellent. Then you will be going down to Buckkeep Town. He knew my mind before I had even thought it. I'd like to check on Hap and see how his apprenticeship goes, unless you need me here. He studied my face for a moment, as if waiting for me to say more. Then he said, go to town. I think it an excellent idea. There are, of course, more festivities tonight, but I shall endeavor to manage my preparation without you. Do please try to make yourself a bit more presentable before leaving my apartments, however. Lord Golden's reputation has been tarnished quite enough of late without it being said that he keeps moth-eaten servants. I'll try, I snorted. I rose from the table slowly. My body had rediscovered its aches. And the fool kind of like turns around in one of the chairs that's facing the hearth, the fire hearth that's going. And as Fitz is leaving, the fool's voice once again reaches Fitz and says, Fitz, you know I love you, don't you? I halted where I stood. I'd hate to have to kill you, he continued. I recognized his adept imitation of my own voice and inflection. I stared at him, baffled. He sat up taller and glanced over the back of his chair at me with a pained smile. Never again attempt to put my clothing away, he warned me. Verulian silk should be draped for storage, not wadded. I'll try to remember that, I promised him humbly. Good night, Fitz, he says quietly. And that's the last time that they speak. Fitz gets ready here and like looks at some of his clothes and stuff, and we'll talk about that. But as he's leaving, he just says goodbye, fool, and the fool doesn't speak, he just waves. So that's the last time that they speak to each other tonight.
Right. What do you think Beloved was waiting for in that pause when Fitz asks to go see Hap? An invitation?
Yeah, I have no idea. Really?
More discussion? This is, again, where I feel like there are two conversations happening, and I'm not quite sure what's going on in Fool's End. And we'll never get to know because we don't ever get Beloved's point of view.
Right.
But it's just such a weird, like, clearly something is going on Beloved's end. He's waiting for something. He's looking for a sign. He has the whole I love you, Fitz moment. And I wonder if he tries to play up the, oh, hate to have to kill you because of the awkward silence from Fitz, or like something else is going on here. Why is he so upset about Fitz putting clothes away? I know that he's very personal about, or like he has things about don't go through my stuff, but Fitz didn't go through his stuff. He just put stuff away, albeit poorly, obviously.
And he's imitating Fitz's voice here. I think he's trying to make the conversation a little bit more light, trying to make jokes. I don't know, maybe trying to feel more himself in that role with Fitz, if he is stressed. I don't know. But I don't know what the pause was either.
Yeah. It's very, I don't know. It's all just, I wish I was smart enough to understand the undercurrent happening here. And I, like, part of it could be, I mean, we also have to remember Beloved is probably also grieving Night Eyes.
Yeah.
Not to the same depths as Fitz, obviously, but I think Beloved did love Night Eyes in their own way.
Right.
They are connected
Definitely.
on some level,
Mhm.
and that trio loves each other as a whole. So I don't know, maybe this is partially weird because everybody's in grief right now. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's the added stressor of how poorly last night went for Lord Golden. and there's a stress of what do I do next? How do I do this? Maybe this is sort of the moment where Lord Golden knows there's about to be rumors that he should be telling Fitz, hey, people are going to be talking about us, but doesn't want to burden Fitz more and knows Fitz isn't going to take it well and doesn't know how to bring that up in this moment.
Could
Maybe
be.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. And also would make sense why he would want Fitz to sort of be out of the way. Like, hey, you probably want to go Buckkeep, right? Buckkeep Town.
Mm-hmm.
So that he doesn't hear the rumors.
Questions.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of it. But it feels like there's something deeper that I'm missing. And I don't like that feeling.
But as I mentioned before, Fitz goes back to his chamber, grabs out his old leggings and his shirt that he had from his cabin. And the leggings don't really fit him anymore because the time on their journey of privation and injury has kind of wasted him away a little bit. So he's a lot skinnier now. And then his shirt, he's kind of frowning at the stains that he sees there. Nothing changed since he went away, but he's like, well, I guess it was kind of homely, and I'm probably going to need to dress better now, like a townsman, if I'm going to teach the prince. So he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to dress better. And he's a little bit vain about that, but I think he's like, okay, that's fine. I can have better clothes. So he gets in that, and then he looks in the looking glass that he has, trying vainly to smooth his hair, and then gives it up as a bad cause, puts on his cloak, because Fitz once again has cut hanks off of his hair as well for Night Eyes mourning him.
Right.
So he has a stained shirt, slightly loose leggings, and kind of crazy hair at the moment. Puts on his cloak, and then goes out of the chamber, saying, "Good night, fool." He did not speak, but lifted his graceful hand in farewell, his flicking forefinger gesturing me toward the door. I slipped out, feeling oddly as if I had forgotten something.
I wonder if this is when this thought just happened to me, but I wonder if this is when Beloved knows that they're dying soon.
Oh, maybe.
And they don't know how to what to do about that or how to feel. That could be part of it, of recognizing that, oh, this is actually happening really soon. I don't know. Maybe
because
not.
they did finally, they make their changes. The prince got back in time, and now it's like time for a new wave of what's happening in the future kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Could be.
Maybe. I have no idea why Fool is being so quiet. Maybe Beloved just wanted to be included. Maybe Fool's waiting for Fitz to invite him to also go check on Hap, because I don't think he's met Hap.
No, I don't believe so.
So maybe he wanted an invitation. Maybe he wanted Fitz to be like, come with me, come meet with Jinna and Hap. Maybe this is about, oh, he's going to go meet the witch and this is the new starling, and there's a little bit of jealousy there. I don't know.
Then Fitz feels like he forgot something slipping out. And I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's just because the fool is also acting a little bit weird here. And Fitz is like, well, I'm not sure what to say.
I thought it was about the feathers.
Oh, maybe.
Because
Yeah.
Fitz meant to bring up the feathers next time they were alone. And
that makes sense. There's still, I made sure to point out last episode, they're still stuck in that old dusty scroll case, or in the middle of the dusty scroll in Shade's Tower.
yes.
So Fitz walks out, and he has worn clothing and badly cropped hair, as I mentioned. But the atmosphere is of a festival. There's going to be more partying. There's some people leaving, but most everyone is kind of streaming from town up to Buckkeep Castle.
And he does garner a few bemused looks from the people in the castle, but mostly everybody leaves him alone. And I'm wondering, once again, are these looks because he's dressed so crazy or because of rumors that are spreading? We don't know. Fitz is unaware of the rumors, so as far as we can tell, maybe it's just because he looks a little crazy right now.
Right.
But he is sort of noting that as he goes closer to Buckkeep town, that it's getting busier and busier.
Taverns were full to overflowing, music swelled out to lure in passerby, and children raced past, enjoying the excitement of so many strangers in town. The holiday aura was infectious, and I caught myself smiling and wishing many a stranger good evening as I made my way down to Jinna's shop.
This is also kind of strange to me because Fitz is not a look around, enjoy the scenery kind of guy.
No, but he loves his festivals.
He does.
Springfest, Winterfest.
I wonder if this is sort of bringing him back to his childhood and when he used to sneak down to the village during festivals.
Definitely is, because this next passage here is, I passed one doorway and I saw a young man chivying a maid to stay and talk with him a moment longer. Her eyes were bright and her smile merry as she shook her dark curls at him in sweet rebuke. Raindrops jeweled their cloaks. He looked so earnest and so young in his entreaties that I averted my eyes and hurried past. In the next moment, my heart ached as I realized that Prince Dutiful would never know a moment like that, would never taste the sweetness of a stolen kiss or the elation and suspense of wondering if the lady would grant him another moment of her company. No, his wife had been chosen for him, and the freshest years of his manhood would be spent in waiting for her to grow to womanhood. I dared not hope they would be happy. The best I could manage was that they would not make one another miserable. And so he's like, as you kind of mentioned, maybe getting lost in those memories of him as a youngster, and he sees this. And this is also kind of brought up a little bit later when he thinks about Hap of, let the boy be a boy for a time in the town, because he feels of the youth and the love that got stolen from him, from Verity, from Dutiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one of those moments where it is raw and fresh and it sort of opens up old wounds in a way, I'm sure. Although it is interesting to read this and think about the fact that most of his time with Molly was probably taken by the dragon at this point, or girl on dragon. So I don't know. I do wonder if that's partially why this is so sort of like centered around Dutiful and what Dutiful is missing instead of himself and what he missed.
Right.
I don't know. Also, am I crazy, or is it revealed later that Hap was actually the boy no, it's
that boy? No.
Okay. For some reason, when I read that, I was like, is this Hap? And Fitz just didn't notice because we know he's out with a girl later. So I was like,
Definitely not. I'm pretty sure he would have recognized that.
You never know.
Never know.
It's Fitz.
Eventually, he does find his way to Jinna's door, and he's halting outside of it when there's a sudden awkwardness that floods him. It is raining out, and he's looking at this house, and the windows are shuttered. There's some like light playing on the inside of there, and he's like, it doesn't look welcoming to me. Rather, it feels like that's a home, and I'm out here, and I'm disturbing it.
Yes, and it's this moment of sort of, oh my gosh, it's way later than I thought. I don't feel like I belong here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is to do with some charm that Jinna's put up to deter people from entering her home?
I mean, it could be, but it could also just be Fitz.
That's true.
And his nerves of seeing Jinna again.
Yeah, because last time he saw Jinna, they kissed, right?
Yeah.
That was the last time they saw each other. So I think they're a bit awkward.
And also, like, trying to pass the news of Nighties along to Hap, and feeling like Fitz never belongs in places that are comfortable.
That's fair.
Like, what am I doing intruding on somebody else's life?
Yeah.
I'm never wanted.
Yeah, which is so very sad. And we definitely see him play into, because he's sort of hyping himself up to even knock on the door. He's like,
right.
I won't stay. I'm just going to take Hap out for a drink.
He's planning his kind of conversation here.
Yeah, which is so very real. I think I too have had a social anxiety moment where I'm pre-planning everything I'm going to say and do so it's not weird. And he's like, I don't even have to step in. I'll just wait for Hap to come out. I'll show Hap that I think of him as a man now by taking him to a tavern for a drink to talk to him. And it'll be fine. Nothing will be weird. I'm not intruding on anything. And he knocks.
Who's there? Tom Badgerlock. I cursed my awkward tongue. Look, I'm sorry to call so late. I've been away and thought I should check on Tom. The door was flung wide to my hasty excuses, nearly hitting me as it opened. Tom Badgerlock! Come in, come in! So obviously she welcomes him in with open arms. She's extremely excited to see him as well, saying that she just put on some elderberry tea. Would you like a cup? And Fitz is like, yeah, that would be good. I didn't mean to intrude. I only meant to check on Hap and see how. Here, let me take your wet cloak. It's drenched. I'll hang it here. Come sit by the fire. Well, sit down. You'll have to wait, for the young scamp isn't here. Truth to tell, I've been thinking to myself that sooner you came back and had a word with the lad, the better for him. Not that I wish to be telling tales on him, but he wants someone taking a hand with him. Hap? I asked incredulously. I took a step toward the fire, but her cat chose that moment to wrap himself suddenly against my ankle. I lurched to a halt, barely avoiding stepping on him. Make a lap, near the fire. The assertive little voice rang in my mind. I looked down at him, and he looked up at me. For an instant, our gazes brushed, and then we both looked aside in instinctive courtesy. But he had already seen the ruins of my soul. He rubbed his cheek against my leg. Hold the cat. You'll feel better. I don't think so. He rubbed against my leg insistently. Hold the cat. I don't want to hold the cat. So he rears up, kind of paws into Fitz's leg and says, Don't talk back. Pick up the cat.
So there's two parts of this, right? We have Hap has been a little rapscallion.
Young scamp.
While Fitz has been away.
But Fitz doesn't have any details yet.
No, and that kind of shocks Fitz that Hap could be anything but good. And then we have this moment with the cat. I think this reading of the cat is really interesting to me because it opens up a lot of questions for me. First of all, Fitz and the cat look at each other and their minds touch enough for the cat to know that Night Eyes is gone, which could be because he was previously bonded and now that's gone. I don't know how that works. I don't know how other witted people or animals feel that.
Fitz has said that he's kind of like questing out constantly and like keening, and he's trying to rein that in, of course, but cats don't really know how sensitive they can be if they are always open like that.
Yeah. And so I guess that is one of my questions is, are cats just really adept at reading everyone like that? Whether or not they're skilled, or especially when you're, sorry, not skilled, but whether or not you're witted, or especially if somebody is witted, can they just connect to you to know little details like that willy-nilly? Because if so, feels like a cat would be a great tool for an assassin witted person because they could learn so much about everyone.
Yeah.
And granted, they could get the cat to want to help, which seems to be, it would be the hardest part. But I don't know. I just wonder how far it goes. But I also like that this sort of gives a kinder view to cats than we have previously seen. I guess we know that the cat that Dutiful was bonded to was a fiercely loyal creature that loved Dutiful, but mostly we didn't get to see a lot of that. Mostly we were seeing like the aloofness of the cat, and previously with Fennel is very nonchalant and not all about being near Fitz.
Right.
So I think in this moment, getting to see the good side to cats is kind of nice, of this cat that's like, I'll comfort you, human, which is...
Well, I'll comfort you by you picking me up and giving me a comfortable place to sit, which is like...
Well,
very cat-like, you know?
Yes, but he
I'll
could have
allow
used...
you.
Yeah, I'll allow you. He could have used Jinna's lap.
True.
I'm sure Jinna would have,
Yeah.
So this is a niceness, I would say, a courtesy.
Fitz bends down to unhook Fennel, but Fennel, with agility, jumps up onto Fitz's shoulder. And despite Jinna being like, oh, stop that, you have better manners, blah, 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 I'll get him down. Fitz is like, no, it's fine, it's fine. So he goes and sits down in the chair by the hearth. And Fennel settles down in his lap.
And then Fitz, folds his hands above Fennel, not petting Fennel, in a stoic way of showing that he is ignoring the cat. And the cat replies, "Be nice to me. She loves me best."
Probably true.
So as he settles down in the spot, he asks about Hap. Like, okay, enough with the cat. What's going on with Hap?
Yeah, and Jinna responds that he should be at home in bed, ready to get up in the morning to work hard for his master. Instead, he's out dangling after Mistress Hartshorn's daughter, who is far too knowing for her tender years. She's a distraction to him, that Svanja, and even her own mother says she would be better at home, tending to work and learning her own trade. She nattered on in a voice of mixed annoyance and amusement. The level of her concern astonished me. I felt a twinge of jealousy. Was not Hap my boy for me to worry about? As she spoke, she set a cup at my elbow, poured tea for both of us, and resumed her chair and knitting.
I think Fitz's knee-jerk reaction to be jealous is really interesting here, because this is someone who clearly cares a lot about Hap and his well-being. I mean, I don't know, obviously it's not his mom. Why does she care if he does well in his apprenticeship? But I think that's really big. It's really hard to find sort of friends that you can trust with your child, let alone a friend who will care for them like their own child.
Right.
To be like, hey, your kid is not paying attention to their apprenticeship, which is crazy, by the way, because Hap has presumably been there for 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
Maybe less than 2 weeks, and he's already shirking his duty of apprenticeship that he begged Fitz to get, this was the thing he wanted to do. This is like his dream. He worked all summer to get to this dream, and now 2 weeks in, he's already not doing his job in favor of going after the love of a young woman. And so, yeah, obviously it's not great. It doesn't look good for the apprenticeship. And Fitz is more worried about how Jinna is like too invested. That's his kid. Why does she care?
I don't know if Fitz is worried about that. It says he has a twinge of jealousy here. I don't think that's a very strong reaction. I think it's just kind of I should be the one being here and worrying over my son.
Okay.
No, I've been away, I guess, is how I feel like it reads that it stems from his guilt of not being involved.
Oh, yeah, absolutely it does. I just thought it was interesting that there is that jealousy, though, instead of like relief that he picked the right person to leave Hap with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
She looks over at Fitz, and for the first time, kind of their eyes meet, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, Tom, poor man, what's happened to you? Empty as a hollow log when the mice are eaten. My wolf died." It shocked me that I spoke the truth so bluntly. Jinna was silent, staring at me. I knew she could not understand. I did not expect her to understand. But then, as her helpless silence lengthened, I felt very much as if she might understand, for she offered no useless words. Abruptly, she dropped her knitting in her lap and leaned across to put her hand on my forearm. "Will you be all right?" And Fitz knows that she genuinely was listening for a reply and wanted a genuine reply to that. And he says, "In time, for the first time, I admitted that was true. As disloyal as the thought felt, I knew that as time passed, I would be myself again. And in that moment, I felt for the first time the sensation that Black Rolf had tried to describe to me. The wolfish part of my soul stirred and... Yes, you will be yourself again, and that is as it should be." I heard near as clearly as if Night Eyes had truly shared the thought with me. Like remembering, but more so, Rolf had told me. I sat very still, savoring the sensation. Then it passed, and a shiver ran over me. So that's proof there that the previous chapter, or maybe 2 chapters ago, that was not the first sharing of consciousness that Night Eyes had with Fitz when he was thinking of, Night Eyes would have thought this way. But it's the first thought of, I will be fine in time, and like, I will get over this. And Night Eyes speaks up and is like, yeah, you will.
And that's how it should be.
Yep.
Yeah. This is interesting being the first official like moment that Fitz is acknowledging,
And
at
it
least.
is italicized.
It is italicized. I don't know if it like goes either way yet though, of like, is this Night Eyes or is this just the remembering but more? And we know Night Eyes is there somehow. So I don't know. I guess we'll see more as time goes on, obviously. This isn't a great example, but it is good to know this is the first official I've
Yeah.
heard Night Eyes' voice. This is how he would respond to the situation. And it's not a thought that I had of like, oh, he would have said this.
Right.
It came to me and I realized, yeah, that is how Night Eyes would respond.
Jinna advises him to drink more tea, and they kind of settle down into a companionable silence just for a little bit here. And Fitz is looking around and sees that some charms over the mantle kind of exude hospitality. And he's wondering, is it just the wall charm's effect on me? If it was, I didn't care. Something in me eased another notch. And as I mentioned before, the beginning part of this chapter didn't have a lot of description, but now we're getting a lot of description of how Fitz is feeling.
Yes.
The contents of the room and like kind of the comfortability and how cozy it is here.
Right. Which partially the room not being described could be because
It's Lord Golden's chambers. There's nothing
we've
going
been
on there. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I think this is more Fitz. And that could be because it's more time away from the drugs effects, right?
Right.
More
Yeah.
time has passed. It could be a lot of things, just sort of settling down and noticing because there is time to just be silent. There's no expectations. There's no. The person he's with didn't know Night Eyes, right?
Right.
I mean,
Met him once.
yeah, but they don't know anything about him. This isn't a pressured situation of like somebody who's going to constantly. And Jinna doesn't know him well enough to know, sort of like be like worried to be like,
Right.
oh, maybe he'll wolf out or whatever. I think there is a lot of pressure on Fitz, not on purpose, but being around his friends and family that know him better because they know all the bad things that have happened to him in the past and because of their level of worry, rightfully so. But I think sometimes, even if it is rightful, it can still be a lot to have to, in the middle of your grief, be like, it's not that bad, guys. Like, you're reassuring them more than you're feeling your grief and being with yourself.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a moment of safety for Fitz where he gets to just be sad and it doesn't have to be more than that.
And of course, Fennel puts in smugly, petting the cat makes you feel better.
Yes.
You know, claiming the all of the
All the good
credit.
feeling is because of
Yep.
the cat. Maybe it is. Who knows?
Jinna continues saying that Hap will be heartbroken when he hears he knew that the wolf was following you, even though I was worried when the wolf disappeared. So what are you going to do about him? I thought of myself so many years ago, and of Verity, and even young Dutiful. I thought of all the ways that duty had shaped us and bound us and held back our hearts. Truly the boy should be home by now, getting sleep, the better to serve his master on the morrow. He was an apprentice yet, and his prospects were not yet settled. He had no business showing an interest in a girl. I could take a firm hand with him and remind him of his duty. He would listen to me. But Hap was not the son of a king, nor even a royal bastard. Hap could be free. I leaned back in my chair. It rocked, and I absently stroked the cat. Nothing, I said after a moment. I think I'll do nothing. I think I'll let him be a boy. I think I'll let him fall in love with a girl and stay out later than he should, and have a pounding headache tomorrow when his master chides him for being late. I think I'll let the boy be a boy for a time. Do you think that's wise? She asked, but smiled as she said it. No, I think it's foolish and wonderful. Before I finish out the chapter,
Yeah.
there's that kind of callback to what I was saying before when he sees that boy and the girl in the street on this way over and just thinking about the sadness of that. The dutiful does not have it. And now he's thinking of his son and being like, well, Hap has it right now. I can't trap him the way I got trapped. Which is a great sentiment, but also is such a clear example of, the way that the parents were raised affects how the kids are raised, and they pass
Yeah.
on different things.
Yeah.
Because Hap is in a different situation. He needs a little bit of that discipline. He's never been to a city before.
Yeah. I think part of it too is me thinking I am of two minds of this, right? Like, I don't like Fitz's nonchalance of like, let's let him be a boy. Yes, obviously I want Hap to get to be just a boy. However, Hap isn't a prince, like he said. So if he doesn't get this apprenticeship,
Right, I know,
and like fails at this, that hurts his chance of getting any career. And then what does he do with the rest of his life? He doesn't have the Farseer bloodline to fall back on to pay him for the rest of his life. Yes, Fitz is there and would never let Hap come on hard times. But then what? Hap just has to live off of Fitz's generosity for the rest of his life. And
right.
and mind you, Fitz also has to be aware of Hap's situation enough to know where and when to send help and what kind of help is needed, which isn't really Fitz's strong suit.
Also, I find it really funny of when Fitz says, I could take a firm hand with him. He would listen to me. And in the next book, we see that he does not listen to Fitz.
No, he would not listen to Fitz. But still, I think it's just this really interesting idealization of like, oh, because there's no pressure, it doesn't matter. But that's not a great way to look at it, because it does still matter. Like, everybody has duty, not just princes or
it's
bastards.
Such a great sentiment. However, it's a bit misguided.
Yeah. Like, and also, you can still have a firm hand and say, hey, you need to do better at your apprenticeship, and not forbid him from ever seeing this girl ever again. Like, there is a middle ground. It isn't either or. It can be both. And I think that also is crazy that he's not seeing that. He's just like, well, I didn't want to be stifled, so I won't do that to Hap. Which, again, great sentiment. Not really setting him up for success later in life. And it does work out, which is great. However, imagine if Hap wasn't skilled at being a bard.
Right.
Then what? And I get, like, yeah, as a kid, you're like, oh, I want to be a ballerina or a doctor or whatever. And then you start getting into what makes you be able to do that thing. And you're like, ooh, actually, I don't like this at all. This isn't what I thought it would be.
But in a modern time, we have that flexibility and like.
But if I said I want to be a ballerina and then went to a ballet class and didn't like it, that's not going to mean that I like have now messed up my future earnings for life.
Right.
I'm just a kid who changed my mind. This is not the world Hap lives in. And Hap is already at a disadvantage by starting a little bit later than most people do.
Yeah.
And he just started. It's been 2 weeks. Maybe give it a year before you decide it's not your dream. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot. I think younger me reading this was like, yeah, go Fitz. Who cares? Almost 30-year-old me is like, hey, what about his future, Fitz? Like, hey, Fitz, maybe we think about a little bit more than just, when I was a boy, I wanted to do that, so I'll let my kid do it. Okay, then what?
So Fitz says, I don't think it's wise. I think it's foolish and wonderful. And Jinna says, oh, well, will you stay and have another cup of tea then? Or must you hurry back to the keep and your own duties? I have no duties tonight. I won't be missed. Well then, she poured another cup of tea for me with an alacrity that was flattering. You'll stay here a while, where you have been missed. She sipped from her cup, smiling at me over the rim of it. Fennel drew breath and began a deep rumbling purr. That's pretty much the end of the main book, but we do have that epilogue, yeah.
We do have an epilogue left, but yeah, that is the end. Fitz is happy, I will say.
Yes, yes.
As much as I don't like his decisions, he is happy. So,
and it's not like that big of a decision in this moment here, right?
No.
It's just kind of the attitude that he's bringing into the rest of it, because he's a little bit more lax with Hap in the next book, even though Jinna's being kind of insistent, like, hey, something needs to be done.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that when we get to it, but.
Yeah. And I do think some of it does stem from the fact that, in a way, Fitz was pretty sheltered. I've talked about this before, like, obviously in some ways not at all, but in the way that real people live, Fitz has been sheltered his whole life on that. Like Fitz has never had to live like a real
He
person.
grew up from a place of privilege 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, he was abused and beaten and traumatized, but he was still in a privileged position compared to other people in the world that he lives in.
Yeah. And even when he went away from the place he was raised, he was still given a stipend and people were pulling strings in the background, making sure that he was going to be okay. Like there was never a chance of him ending up homeless and in a place where he couldn't get any help ever again if he was in danger or something. Like that was never a danger for him. And even if he didn't realize that, there is sort of that inherent, like, of course you're never going to fail.
Yeah.
You're a farseer. Like they're not going to let you. I don't know. So I think that's really interesting to see that at play here because it's something we don't talk about a lot with Fitz, right? And who wants to talk about the privilege of being Fitz when his life was so hard? But I do think it is important to point out that is where I think a lot of his blind spots come from, especially dealing with Hap, that he just doesn't know how the world works. He's a rich, privileged guy, even though his life wasn't great.
Yeah.
So, of course, he's like, oh, who cares?
But as I mentioned, this chapter is kind of odd, right? It starts out so kind of blank. And so there's such a lack to the conversation between Beloved and Fitz that we can remark upon it. Like there's usually such a vibrancy to those descriptions and like such weight given to those interactions. And this one feels like nothing. And then he leaves saying like, I forgot something. And yes, it definitely probably is about the feathers, but in a more reading into it way, it's like there's something here that is atypical.
Yes.
And then we move on to the Jinna portion where he gets a little bit of ease from his healing because Jinna asks about it, because he explains himself. And then they sit in silence, right?
Yeah.
And let that breathe. I know Beloved was there for Night Eyes' death and is part of that grieving, but I don't think Night Eyes or Beloved knows what to do beyond that, right? He knows enough to be quiet about it.
Well, like Fitz said before, he just wanted to be with his friend.
Yeah.
And he's upset that Fool wasn't there for him, didn't say anything. And then later when somebody else brings it up, he realizes that when Starling is bringing up the death and trying to like make it better, he realizes, oh, maybe the Fool did know me. But I do wonder if it's more of like, oh, that's why he did it. Obviously he had a good intention in mind rather than acknowledgement of like, oh, maybe Fool also doesn't know what to do.
Right. And we've said earlier in this episode that there's probably good reasons for the way that Fool's acting and possibly a lot going on in their mind right now.
Yeah.
But Fitz finds his comfort and a lot of expansiveness and description in the later half of this chapter.
I will say Fitz is also a very passive person in all of his relationships. Like, Fitz doesn't actively reach out to his friends for anything very often. Occasionally it does happen, but naturally he's so passive and just waits for them to come to him, even if it's about him. Like
because remember, it's transactional, right?
Yes. Yeah. So with Fitz, I really do feel like this is partially exacerbated by the fact that he won't just reach out to Fool in this moment.
Yeah.
And Fool doesn't know what to do. And Fool's waiting for that hint, like, of what to do from Fitz, and Fitz isn't giving it. Because again, I think one of their fatal flaws as friends is that they speak different languages in like insofar as how they communicate their feelings to each other.
Right.
And so yeah. I do also wonder again if this is sort of a people believe this to be a retelling of his life by Fitz. And so I wonder if this is sort of
glossing over.
Yeah. Because it could be. It could be he doesn't want to share this intimate moment with the Fool that's private.
There is the epilogue, and we'll talk more about it next week as well, but the epilogue talks about how you can't really pin down the past, right? It's kind of ephemeral and writing down a history, because he's talked about it forever throughout all of his little epilogues and prologues of like, I keep trying to write down stuff, but it comes out different every time and about me. And I realized all of these historians are just trying to pin something down in a certain perspective, and you can't do that. So it could definitely be something like that, where this is a moment where he doesn't really know how it went, and or maybe he doesn't want to share details of it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you guys have any ideas on that, please let us know. Or if you have questions about the whole book or thoughts about the whole book, we'll be discussing those next week at the end of that episode. Please email us at isfitzhappy@gmail.com or message us on any of our social medias where Fizz is happy. Where it is Fitz Happy at Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and Reddit and YouTube. So please let us know what you got going on, what you're thinking, and ask us anything about the book or the next book, I guess.
Yeah, tell us what you're excited for next book.
Mm-hmm. And as a reminder, we are going to be after next week. So this episode came out. Next episode is going to be the epilogue and the final book discussion for Tawny for Fool's Errand. And then we're taking a 2-week break as normal. And then the next 2 weeks are going to be The Willful Princess and The Piebald Prince, Part 1 and Part 2.
Yes.
And then we'll get into Book 2 of the Tawny Man Trilogy.
All very exciting.
Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Hope to hear from you.
Okay, time for our favorite part. We're going to talk about what you guys brought to our attention. And first and foremost, we are starting with Degenhart. Degenhart wrote in on Blue Sky to talk about how they think that Laurel's misunderstanding is jealousy and prejudice.
And this is speaking of the misunderstanding or like her not understanding why people would use the wit.
Yes. Yeah. And says that an underlying question could also be, why live at all if you have to die in the end? Which is just sort of going on about how Laurel once again said,
if you're going to have that loss, why do it to begin with?
Yeah. And I brought up how that's what a relationship is.
Yeah.
Kind of. So
yeah, kind of agree with that.
Degenhart agreed with that.
Also brought up that amen is canon in the Six Duchies now, because there was a passage in that chapter that mentioned amen.
Yes. So we can say amen in the Six Duchies. That is allowed.
Yeah. It's dear saw, amen. You know?
So that is very fun. So thank you, Degenhart, for writing in.
We had some comments on Facebook as well, and we will start on episode 279, which is part 2 of chapter 27. And this comment is by Bastion, so thanks for writing in first off. And Bastion hasn't been able to write in for a little bit here. Thankfully was on a bike ride for the chapter with Night Eyes.
So didn't have to see anybody, which good job. But they brought up, they only have a minor opinion to share on that chapter. As you may recall, in this chapter, Dutiful is recalling details about Fitz he got from Chade, him hiding the scissors and having a weasel. And Emma was wondering why Chade would lie about Slink being Fitz's pet instead of his own. Personally, I've always interpreted that bit as Dutiful trying to get Fitz to slip up by stating an incorrect fact in hope that Fitz will correct him. That wasn't my weasel, it was Chade's, or something like that. This would give Dutiful a way to affirm whether he is correct about Fitz being Chade's boy. And that is such a good idea. I actually really like that.
Yeah.
I personally didn't even think that maybe Dutiful would be smart enough to pull that off. Not that he's not a smart kid, but I don't know. Something about the way Fitz describes Dutiful just seems really childish and trusting, which is how he sees him. But I think it is kind of funny to think of, like, maybe he was also pulling one over on Fitz, but Fitz was too seasoned to fall for it, so he just let it slide.
Bastion also brings up or has an explanation for the why Fitz doesn't reveal who he is to the prince at all, and just lets him go on thinking that whatever he wants to think. And points out two different situations in the upcoming books that Bastion thinks he recalls correctly. And the first one is Fitz is discussing this with Kettricken, and Kettricken wants to reveal who he is to Dutiful. And he's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, his argument is that he doesn't want to burden Dutiful with the knowledge that Fitz chivalry is still alive.
Yeah, and the second one is he's talking with himself while he's teaching Dutiful if he should give that knowledge to Dutiful, and eventually lands on a no as well because, again, doesn't want to burden Dutiful, feels like he's airing out dirty laundry, would have to explain who he is and all the secrets that come with it. And Bastion makes a good point that he's been taught by Chade to know that if you share a secret, it is a bad thing.
It's dangerous. And I think there's something really sweet about the idea of Fitz not wanting to burden Dutiful with the knowledge that Fitz chivalry is alive, because that is a big secret that Fitz does not want exposed to anyone else, which, again, is sort of his own opinion. That's not something that everyone agrees with as being the smartest thing, but he doesn't want anyone to know. And so if he tells the secret to Dutiful, that puts pressure on Dutiful to have to keep that secret too. And if he doesn't know, it's not keeping a secret.
And Bastion says as well that Fitz might not want Dutiful to view him as Fitz chivalry because there is a lot of prejudice and a lot of stories that come along attached to that name.
Right. And also, he probably isn't in the right headspace or isn't wanting to talk about what actually happened in his own history. I know it was also mentioned that one of the reasons he decides not to tell Dutiful is because he's worried about explaining how he is the surrogate for Dutiful's birth. But
also,
that's kind of crazy because he doesn't.
That would come up.
Yeah,
know?
Exactly. That's what Degenhart also points out, is like, you don't actually have to tell him that part at all. But I think there is a lot of layers to it, right? Like,
for sure.
Especially the fact that he is technically the biological father of Dutiful. I think that's part of this, is that, like, what does that do to Dutiful to know that his dad actually is alive and it isn't this great guy that he thought it was, it's the bastard.
Right.
You know, so I think that there is a lot of fear on Fitz's end, surprise, surprise, and a lot of self-loathing that's going into this whole, like, I don't want him to know me like that.
Sounds like we'll talk about it more next book, too.
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, Bastion. That was really good.
We also had a comment on episode 280, chapter 28, from Ellen, talking about Chade and Fitz both missing their potentials because of the way that they were born.
Ellen says, it made me realize that Fitz is breaking the generational trauma. Chade is accepting and mostly recreating the trauma of being a bastard, but Fitz is breaking it, partly for himself, but mostly for his children. Really, none of, quote, his 3 children in this trilogy, including Hap, seems to bear as heavy a weight for their being born outside the norm as Fitz or Chade did.
And I agree with the Fitz part of this, and I want to defend the Chade bit a bit, because Chade's position was not a royal bastard position originally. He was out in the open. He was acknowledged as the royal bastard. He was partying all the time, had an accident, went away. Everyone thought he died, and then he was made to be useful later. And I think that's what Chade wants Fitz to be. He wants Fitz to be useful and kept alive, right? So I don't know if that's perpetuating generational trauma. Maybe a little bit from, like, Chade to him. It's just passing along his own, like, fears. But I don't think it was done to Chade in that way.
But isn't Chade... He was an assassin even when he was out in the open, right? Or was he not?
He was, yes. He was being trained that way, but he was out in the open, and I think an accident with, like, powders or poisons or some sort of alchemical thing kind of affected and blew up in his face and made him pocked. And that's why he left. But I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like he describes it later on that he wasn't super attentive. He wasn't, like, super into it. He wasn't doing too much. He was just like doing that.
Oh, I thought
as a-
I thought he was really into the political intrigue part.
I mean, I could be wrong. We'll have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Because it can't like, it can't always be, this is the royal bastard's role, because what if there's not a royal bastard? What if you have a couple that really loves each other, you know?
Let's be real. In this sort of society,
You can't guarantee that there's always going to be one.
That's true. That's true. You cannot guarantee. But if there is one, it seems like there might be a line of them. So,
Well, my point is, I don't think the person who taught Shade was a Farseer.
Okay.
I think he was made to be useful, and that's what he passed down to Fitz. Like, hey, I want you to be useful and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's his own specific fears of like, I don't want you to be offed. I've been in this business a long time.
But isn't that then just passing down your own trauma that you got?
Yeah, but I don't think it's like a generational thing that only Fitz can break out of kind of thing. I think this is I think Beric passed down his generational trauma of, I hate the wit is bad, because his grandmother was obviously traumatized by something, because she's from Chelsea.
Yeah.
And should not have had those prejudices, really.
Well, I guess we don't really know how Chelsea views it. I feel like.
But my point in general is that like that got passed down multiple generations.
Okay.
And Fitz also kind of broke those a bit. So
I don't know.
Fitz is just breaking the mold in all things.
Yes. That's why he's a catalyst. So.
Yeah. But Ellen is right here that none of his kids really are affected by any of that.
Yeah, they're not.
I mean, they have their own issues, of course.
Yes. But they're not burdened by being useful to the Farseer line outside of what they want to do.
Yeah.
Although not at all, but that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Ellen.
Yeah. We also got an email from Jess, and Jess wanted to point out that there's a cute little detail of last chapter where Chade leaves out the extra chair for Fitz.
Yeah.
Which we did talk on, but we didn't really like discuss in depth. We just sort of breezed past. But
we brought it up earlier in the book. The funny interaction where Fitz is on the ground craning his neck to look up at Chade, and then he takes the chair and Chade's like
yeah.
annoyed.
So I think Jess says that was just a really sweet moment to them, because it really shows that Chade is sort of willing to admit that Fitz is more on an equal level, is no longer the child, no longer the student, which also brings up the fact that Chade was 2 steps ahead of this whole conversation and Fitz was just sort of stumbling along to figure it out. And they really appreciate how we really get to see Chade shine in the way that he sort of pulls the strings in getting Fitz to where he wants Fitz to be.
The way that his mind works in general, because he sets the room up. And yes, you can view it as like, oh, it's a courteous thing to put another chair there. But no, this is a chair of equal comfort for equals discussing in this room.
Yes.
And Fitz just kind of eventually realizes it halfway through the conversation.
Yes. Yeah. So it is really fun to see Chade at work. I think it's fair. Sometimes I feel like I'm too paranoid and I'm always looking for the like little extra tidbits in every single chapter with every single character. But with Chade, you can never be too paranoid because he is always running a game and doing something. Like it's always to some end. He's never just doing something to do it. I feel. And so it's really fun when little things like that, you're like, oh man, he really was thinking of everything.
And Jess finishes this off saying that they're starting to read the final book, or the first book in the Mistborn saga. So good luck. It's fun. I like the first trilogy especially a lot. I believe I've read all of the other ones. Maybe I haven't finished the 4th book of the 2nd set there, but they're all pretty good. I like them quite a bit.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing and bringing up those comments.
Thanks, Jess.
Speaking of books, I know someone, I can't remember off the top of my head now because this, of course, is a last minute addition that I didn't think of before we started recording. But speaking of books, someone recommended The Warded Man, and I did read the first book of that, and it was really good. I want to read the rest of them, but I got a lot on my to read, so eventually I'll get around to the sequels.
Yeah.
It was very good, so thank you for the recommendation there.
All right. We also got some DMs on Instagram. One of them is from Martin. And Martin wrote in having some thoughts about how animals give people super meaningful names.
Yeah.
They said, Heart of the Pack, Changer, Scentless. I wonder if all animals magically know through wit all know what the wit name given humans has. All animals seem to have known that Burek is Heart of the Pack, but did any other animal ever call Fitz Changer?
I can't remember a time where anybody else does.
No.
Heart of the Pack seems to be kind of shared in that one space of stables, right?
Uh-huh.
And Night Eyes would have picked that up
From the other animals.
from the other animals, or looking through Fitz's eyes while he's around or something, like touching
Right.
minds with anybody there. Scentless one is kind of self-explanatory, but Changer is a really weird one to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't remember it ever being brought up again.
We'll have to be on the lookout now that we have more animals coming into play, especially to see if any of them mention Changer.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Good idea to bring it up, though. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind. Thank you, Martin. We also had a message from Zoe, and this message sent us off into a tangent, which we will get into. So, Zoe writes in, I have a crackpot theory for you, except I don't think it's crackpot. I'm pretty sure in the first chapter of The Ship of Magic, Kenneth picks up the pendant on the beach but puts it back. So it's a little Easter egg there, or a little bit of destiny. And Luke and I both started rereading that chapter, the very first chapter, where Kenneth is on Other Beach for the first time and is going through. And he does not pick up a figurine in the beach. He picks up a locket that has a woman's face on it, and he puts it in his breast pocket. And later, when he is leaving the beach, he gives it back to Genghis to bring back to the beach to the others.
Yes, because he's kind of ensorcelled by the woods. And
yes, and he wants to explore and take his time, and Genghis is being annoying, so he just gives it back to him to be like, oh, silly me, I forgot. Go give this back so you can leave me alone. So that does not happen, but it is a good call. There is a woman on a string, basically. So yes, in a way. I think it would have been way cooler if it was the figurine, because then it would prove that Genghis never gave it back to the others. He just sort of threw it on the beach and came back, which would be a fun little detail. But while we were going through this, I noticed something in the text that I don't think we brought up at the time. And so I want to bring it up now.
Mm-hmm.
So when Kenneth is getting his omen read by the others, he says, shall I succeed in what I aspire? The others' air sacs pulse speculatively. You do not wish to make your question more specific? Do the omens need me to be more specific? Kenneth asked with tolerance. The other glanced down at the array of objects again. The rose, the cups, the nails, the tumblers inside the ball, the feather, the crystal spheres. You will succeed in your heart's desire, it said succinctly. A smile began to dawn on Kenneth's face, but faded as the creature continued, his tone growing more ominous. That which you are most driven to do, you will accomplish. That task, that feat, that deed which haunts your dreams will blossom in your hands. Enough, Kenneth growled, suddenly hasty. He abandoned any thought of asking for audience with their goddess. So I need to bring that up because it specifically mentions the future of the deed which haunts your dreams, which is his dreams of Ygritte and what Ygritte did to him. And we know that he then does that to Althea.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's huge. And I can't believe we missed it. So I had to call that out because I feel like that's so blatant of like...
It could also, there's another dream that he had, I believe, and it's of Paragon. like sinking or something like that. And like being with Paragon and things that he doesn't want to remember, right? Kind of being
Yeah.
one with him, huddled like bloody on the ship when he's a boy.
Yeah.
And that kind of happens at the end too.
Yeah. So there is a lot that happens. And I think it goes back to the fact that these are prophecies, like whether or not it has anything to do with the items that are on the beach, they are giving actual prophecies to the people that come to the beach. Like they are telling the future.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because how are they doing that?
Right.
It like raises so many more questions.
But that's what they're also in partnership with Claris and the servants for, right? They have that slime from the serpent.
Yeah. But I don't think the slime gives the Claris the ability to see into the future.
True.
Maybe it does. I don't know.
Or maybe they are trading information, right? They provide like the serpent slime to like facilitate skill in the servants, and they provide something back because they're part white.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's crazy. I think that's kind of interesting to know that it's not just the good stuff that Kemet dreams of. It's the bad stuff too, and it does all end up happening. Yeah. And the other said, hey, and the fact that Kemet is so scared after like the continuation, I think is huge also. That's really cool. And we would not have gone back to even notice that had you not brought up that question. So
thank you very much, Zoe, for facilitating that kind of sidetrack there.
Yeah.
And also, they're doing a discussion. They're a nonfiction author, and they're doing a discussion, an event around where they live about what authors read, and they're talking about Assassin's Apprentice, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah.
So thank you for writing in, Zoe. And thank you to everyone who writes in. Also, quickly before we go, I am doing my own little write-in because last chapter, I didn't bring this up, but I did have the thought later. I had to send a voice memo to Luke about it because I had the thought in the middle of a work day and I had to be like, oh my gosh, don't let me forget. So I was wondering if last chapter we have Fitz seeing that the Narcheska has arrived early for the betrothal ceremony, and it's sort of this big deal. Everybody thought that they would be at least a few more days, especially because of storms. And the Narcheska ends up arriving way earlier, or a few days earlier than thought. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with the Pale Woman and her timing, because she thought Fitz would be unsuccessful. And so if the Narcheska showed up early, then the prince wouldn't be back to say like, hey, I'm here. Then it would be like this whole big thing. And then they could go to war with the Six Duchies and ruin things.
Yeah.
So
probably could be a hand in that for sure.
Definitely. So, but it just made me think of one of those things of I wonder if Fitz thwarted her in this moment as well, or if it truly is just coincidence, though it does sort of feel like there's not a lot of coincidences in this series.
Right.
So I thought I'd bring it up because I noticed it. I was just thinking of it. I spend a lot of my days thinking about this trilogy, weirdly enough. So,
and thank you also to Anna and Neva, as always, for contributing and tipping us on Ko-fi.
Yeah, thank you guys. And thank you, everyone. We love hearing your thoughts and we love talking to you about them. So thank you for continuing to write in. And we can't wait to hear what you say next week.